Okay, guys, as by request, I'm going to add chapter 46 to the assignment, and I think you'll be happy because you probably have already read that Eben sees Curzon. So let's just find out what happens next after we see our good friend Eben again. Kindle. All right, chapter 46, Saturday, April 4th, 1778. And this is Baron von Steuben writing about American soldiers to Prussian Baron de Gotti. The genius of this nation is not to be compared with that of the Prussians, Austrians, or French. You say to your soldier, do this, and he does it. But I am obliged to say, this is the reason why you ought to do that. And then he does it. I shall go to my grave blessing the name of Quartermaster General Nathaniel Greene of Rhode Island. Bellingham raised his voice and said he'd report Eben for insolence for running at us like that, and General Greene stepped in the middle of the fray. I fail to see any insolence, James, said the general mildly. He inclined his large head toward Eben. What is your concern here, Private? Ebenezer held his hat in front of him, nervously twisting it round as he spoke. Curzon here, this gentleman's servant, him and me fought together at Saratoga. Didn't mean any harm, sir. Just wanted to visit with him a bit. General Greene regarded me. You were a soldier? Where? I fought in the Battle of Brooklyn, sir, and at Fort Washington, as well as Saratoga. I lived here in camp with my company until Mr. Bellingham again required my service. No need to bore the general. Bellingham's polite words carried a note of warning. I'll explain the circumstances later, sir. Sounds like he's earned the chance to visit with friends, General Greene said. We have no need of him for a bit. Give him leave to go. The officers rode off to General Glover's brigade headquarters, and Eben and me walked in the opposite direction at top speed. The other fellows called me a jack-eyed liar when I pointed you out to them. Then they all saw that it was you, and we wanted to wave our hats and holler, but that Baron, he gets riled up at that sort of thing. Did you feel us all staring at you? We couldn't help ourselves. Look at you. That is a fine coat you're wearing there, master thrower of the stones. Seems like you're eating well enough. Don't get much fire cake, I wager. His voice was so loud, I wondered if the winter air had broken his hearing. Many of the soldiers we passed stopped their work repairing a hut, cleaning rusty muskets, digging a new privy trench to watch the gap-toothed plowboy shouting like he was calling his goats in from the field. I turned west on the shortcut that led to our hut, but Eben shook his head and said in a low voice, Not that way. I'll explain later. Then he resumed talking loud as a trumpet, telling me about the death of his old breeches and the miraculous appearance of the new ones. They showed up on St. Patrick's Day. Did you hear how the Irish fellows from Virginia celebrated that night? Fun lads, but can't play bass to save their lives. We played bass against some lads from Chester. All the artillery camp plays wicket. What was I talking about? We were moving uphill so fast I was panting like an overworked horse. Breeches, I gasped. Right. Our lads in Delaware captured a ship filled with cloth and British uniforms. That's where these breeches come from. The sergeant finally got himself a proper officer's coat, though the sleeves are too short, and we dyed it with walnuts on account of no self-respecting patriot wants to wear a red coat. I stopped to catch my breath. Burns isn't a big fellow. How could the sleeves be too short? You don't know? Eben smacked his forehead. Of course you don't know. How could you know? Big news around here, but it must have been a mouse fart to the generals and congressmen. John Burns is dead. Smallpox. You're joking. Serious as the grave, my friend. He took ill right after you left and died at the Yellow Springs Hospital. Haven't missed him one bit. We do miss Sylvanus, though. He died a few days after Burns. He went to sleep one night, same as the rest of us, and didn't wake up the next morning. He kicked at a clod of dirt, and it crumbled. We buried him near Uncle Caleb. Figured the two could keep each other company, complaining about the state of the world. Anyone else? Dead? Nope, that's it. We had one lad come back from the dead. Remember Peter Brown, who could run so fast in Albany, took sick when we first arrived? He strolled in last week, fat, happy, and married to a girl from Yellow Springs. A more content lad you never saw, except maybe for Greenlaw. Captain made him sergeant. He's the one who needs the longer sleeves in his coat. How fare the others? Faulkner got himself some paper to draw on. Benny Edwards is teaching Aaron Barry his letters. Waste of time, if you ask me. The Barrys have very small brains. Henry spends every minute he can at the creek trying to catch frogs. Swears he's going to cook up a mess of frogs' legs fried in grease with spring onions and potatoes. Eben shook his head. I'm still hungry all the time. As soon as I get home, I'm planting my backside at Aunt Patience's table and eating for a month. Wish I could join you there, I said. You can. Eben glanced around us before dropping the pretense of his act and lowering his voice again. We have a plan. Okay, they have a plan. I'm curious to see what it is, but we'll have to wait until next week. Don't forget to do your jots, chapters 45 and 46 for Monday's conversation, and make sure that on Monday morning before 10 o'clock's meeting, you review your notes and star jots and whatnot so that you're fresh in your minds. Have a good weekend, everyone.